Morality still isn't objective, but far too many people who claim that it is, they don't understand what the terminology means because, let's be honest, they just don't care. We're going to see some more of that today because that's not exactly a surprise, is it? So strap in, this one's going to be rough. But what else should we expect? Here we go again with Seeker's Tavern and his subjective morality is logically impossible crap. Although he's only proving that he has no idea what words mean or how to rationally defend a concept. Because, of course, that's what's going on. He's just spouting nonsense, things that are demonstrably untrue, but he doesn't care because he's getting an emotional high out of the idea, and that's really all that matters. Except, it doesn't. But I guess we can let him make a fool of himself once again. At least that might be entertaining, right? So let's go see.
Now that is the first reason, but there is a second reason. It's similar to it, but from a different point of view.
Sorry, but I've seen this a lot, especially lately, and it really bugs me. Theists who will say, here's X number of reasons for my beliefs, and pretty much all of the reasons are the exact same reason with very minor variations. I'm not saying that's what this guy's going to do, but it reminded me of just how much I hate that. Here's this argument. Here's the same argument with a couple of words switched around. Here's the same argument once again if you look at it sideways. It just never ends. Because we all know that every single religious philosophical argument is just a gigantic argument from ignorance, asserting things that cannot be demonstrated to be true just because they really like the idea. I don't get it, therefore God. I don't want to get too far off his point, so I guess we should probably get back to it. What is your second reason that subjective morality is logically impossible? Because I bet it won't be any better than your first. Let's get back and see.
Think about it this way. The only reason why we can have an intellectual discussion about what is moral and what is not is because it's objective.
Wrong. Because it's not objective. I can have a discussion with you because, presumably, we come from the same cultural background. That doesn't make the moral precepts that we discuss objectively true. It just means that we understand the same conventions, and thus we can just have that discussion. Now, try doing that with someone from an entirely different cultural context. If you were to talk to someone who lived in the colonial American period, just for shits and giggles, a lot of them would want to execute witches, even just people who were suspected of being witches. And yes, you can find people who want to do that today too. Go back to the ancient Israelites, and they were stoning unruly children as a punishment, or as a punishment for working on the Sabbath. There were plenty of places where, if you did something that those people just didn't like, you could be sold into slavery forever. There were cultures where it was perfectly normal to sacrifice babies to the gods. Because in China today, it is still acceptable in a lot of places to kill female babies because they really wanted males. This is not hard to find at all. And this is exactly why morality is subjective. Because morality is just societal ethics determined by what that specific culture wants to do. It doesn't matter if you like that or not, that is what's actually going on. Maybe you need to grow up and deal with it. Give it a shot.
If it wasn't objective, then we wouldn't be able to have any kind of discussion about it whatsoever.
Which is bullshit, because we can have conversations about all kinds of things that are purely subjective. Star Wars versus Star Trek. Which sports team is better? Who has the best music? This kind of thing is all around us. Some people get really hung up on morality because they've been brainwashed since birth to believe that their own particular brand of morality is the only one that actually exists. But that is simply not true. It's the same reason that we get religious wars. My God is the only God. Yeah, tell that to the guy over there who's saying the exact same thing about their own gods. Because obviously, not everyone is going to agree. And when people are willing to kill you over disagreements, then you're just looking for trouble. Humans have all kinds of strong disagreements about just about everything, really, and they don't want to be wrong, even if they are. This is what happens when you grow up in a cultural vacuum and have no clue what's going on outside. You tend to sound like this bozo, and that is not a good thing.
I mean, supposedly, if we had the same basic values, then we could argue whether our actions help to promote these values or not.
But we don't. I mean, sure, within a monoculture, you can get something approximating that, but the world isn't a monoculture. Even within most modern societies, that is not how it works. Look at the influx of Muslim immigrants into a lot of places in Europe. It's chaos because the Muslims don't hold the same cultural values as the people that they're intermixing with, and both sides think that their rules are the only rules that matters. Now, you can certainly have a discussion, and there are a lot of discussions ongoing, because it's all purely subjective. There's also a lot of violence happening because neither side is willing to give up. It's like the religious, like Dipstick here, have never turned on a TV and never looked at a news feed. Because that's really all it should take.
But nevertheless, if somebody disagrees about the basic values of your moral system, there is no intelligent way of talking about it.
Sure there is. It happens all the time. Of course, you have to accept that morality is inherently subjective. What he's really saying is that you can't have a rational discussion with fanatics, which I would probably agree with. So stop being a fanatic. This is really the problem with the religious, and unfortunately it's not just them, is it? The people who insist, my way or the highway, tend to have these problems because they can't accept that anyone else has their own system of thinking. Now, you can certainly argue over which system is better or produces more justifiable results, but then you have to agree on the goal, and good luck on that. Because people have wildly varying goals too, right? Especially when you throw in religious and political systems that have to be just taken on faith. And that's where it all becomes a mess.
So what happens? Let's say that person A wants to help people and person B wants to kill people.
That's kind of a wild dichotomy, isn't it? But sure, we'll just go with it. If it was just those two people living in isolation with all other things being equal, whoever was stronger would win out, assuming they couldn't just go off and live entirely independently without the other person being around. Someone is going to wind up dead, whether by murder or self-defense or something like that, and that's just going to be the end of the argument, isn't it? But most people, they don't tend to live in isolation, do they? So let's get a small village, say. Maybe 100 people. I don't know. I'm just making this shit up as I go. If 90% of the people agree with the guy who wants to help people, then the village will almost certainly follow that moral system. If 90% of the people want to kill other people, then that's what will likely happen. Granted, the town probably won't last for long that way, unless they're attacking other villages, and then it really depends on how much the other villages are willing to put up with before they turn around and kill them right back. It usually comes down to might makes right, whether anyone likes that or not. The strong and the numerous tend to win out. It's not because one system is better than the other, but because one side is stronger. Welcome to the real world. Learn to deal.
Their moral systems are incompatible with each other.
Very possibly. You can either try to convince the other side, or they can try to convince you to change to whatever else they think, or you're going to have conflict. Or the people on one side can just leave and go someplace else. It's kind of a messy process. Lots of people just want to say, I'm just right and everybody else is just wrong and everybody has to be just like me or else. But that's not how reality works. It doesn't matter what you like. It matters what you can convince everyone else around you of, and then only so long as someone else doesn't come along and convince them of something else. That's why moral systems change so dramatically over time. Most people think slavery is just fine. Okay, fight a war, give it some time, and most people think slavery isn't fine anymore. Slavery was never objectively right, and it's never going to be objectively wrong, no matter what you really wish was true. It's just wrong now. But who knows about tomorrow? Welcome to the real world.
It's just what they subjectively chose, right? He chose that one, so what can happen? Well, if they can't talk, and they are in contradiction with each other, the only thing they can do is fight. It means war.
Nope. Although that does happen, certainly, but there are lots of moral systems that have just changed over time. Victorian moral codes don't really exist today for most people. There are a few, but not a whole lot. There was no war over that, it just changed over time. As people stop caring about one thing and start caring about something else, views change across the culture as those views spread out. The only constant thing in these things is change. What we think is moral today, for the most part, will probably be different tomorrow. I mean, some of the big ticket items will likely remain similar because they have a demonstrable benefit to society. But the smaller ideas, those are going to change, and there's really nothing that you can do about it. That's why religion is dying. Most people just don't care about it anymore. They don't need it. They don't want it. So it's going away. In another 50 years, the religious landscape in most places will look very, very different than it does now, because the religious landscape today looks very different from what it was 50 years ago. I know I keep saying welcome to the real world, but it's true. It's just pathetic how many people can't handle it.
That's the only way to solve such a conflict. There is no other way.
Except all the ways that it demonstrably plays out in every culture on the planet all the time. This is what happens when you have no grasp on reality and you really don't want one. You end up looking like this guy, and there are plenty of these people running around. It's really hard to have a coherent conversation with them because, as I said before, they're just fanatics. It's not just the religious that are the problem, but they certainly are a problem, aren't they? They really need to knock it off and grow the hell up because I think a distinct lack of maturity and intelligence is the ultimate cause. Because holy shit, these people sure are stupid, aren't they?
But hold on a second. Who wins that conflict? Every single philosophy or every single moral system that you come up with will either help you to build a nation that will win a war, or it will prevent you from building a good nation that will win a war.
And if you notice, he's only concerned with winning, not being factually correct. Because he's completely lost the script when it comes to objective morality. What if pacifism is the objectively correct view? You're gonna get your ass kicked when the morally incorrect people come to call, aren't you? Because pacifism doesn't help you win a war. Quite the opposite, in fact. So this guy is a loon who has no idea whatsoever what the hell he's talking about. Not that I suspect he cares. This is why the whole objective morality debate falls apart the second that it starts, because they have no clue what's actually going on. Nor, let's be honest, do they care.
It effectively becomes a kind of game. And as many gamers know, there usually is a best strategy, or at least a couple of them.
So now, you're no longer talking about objectivity, are you? You're talking about game theory. This is stupid, isn't it? You might be convinced that pacifism is morally correct, but that doesn't do you a lot of good when Hitler rolls over your border, does it? So now you have to try to rationalize why going to war is a good thing, and the objectivity of your moral views go right out the window, as now you're just fighting for survival. If you were to maintain your pacifistic nature, you'll just become a client state for the guys with the bigger guns. And yes, some countries have chosen to do that. That was a choice, not an objective fact. And I honestly don't think this guy has the slightest idea what the hell he's talking about. Not that that's really much of a surprise, is it?
And some are much better than others. The only reason why it's possible to be better is because there is good and there is evil.
Nope, that's a bald rationalization. I think this is another case of someone having no clue what words mean, and given the fact that this idiot has far more downvotes than upvotes, and everybody in the comments is telling him what a moron he is, that's pretty much to be expected. This is why having these discussions is such a mess, and why you really need to start with defining your terms up front, something that they never ever do, right? Because as with most things, people wind up talking past each other, and it's all ultimately a gigantic waste of everyone's time, and nothing ever gets accomplished. It's why I throw in these videos here and there, because I get really tired of the objective morality mental midgets in the comments making every single mistake that this jackass is making. Because they don't care either. They just really want to believe.
So no matter what we do, it is logically impossible to have a subjectively moral system.
Except every single moral system that has ever existed is demonstrably subjective. Everything that he's talked about has been demonstrably subjective. I don't think he knows what any of these words mean. This is incredibly common. He's really just having a discussion with himself and his own emotional comfort, not with actual demonstrable reality. It's the stuff that I really like for personal emotional reasons, and I'm going to call that objectively true. Yeah, you're an idiot. The stuff that gets you where you really want to be is not objectively true. What happens when something else comes along that works better to reach your goals? Was your old way now objectively false because something else works better? He's never thought about any of this intelligently, has he? And that's not exactly a surprise.
Because ultimately, it will always come down to some objective factors that will help your civilization or yourself survive and thrive, or die and disappear.
Every culture eventually disappears. All of them. Even the ones that exist today, they are not going to last forever. Somebody bigger or badder is going to come along, someone more economically powerful or more technologically proficient, they will come along and they will drive your nation out of business or into the proverbial Stone Age, and there's really not much you can do about it if you can't compete. See, he's not even talking about morality anymore. He never really was because, he's an imbecile. That's why these people make such ludicrous fools of themselves. And then they put it on YouTube and prove to the world what a bunch of idiots they are. This is not a good thing, is it? But they insist on doing it over and over and over again. What the hell is wrong with them?
That's why morality is 100% objective and not subjective.
And you're an idiot. There's nothing else to say. He's got a 30-second conclusion, I'm guessing, and I guess we'll take a look at it unless it's just a bunch of subscribe to me nonsense. But this was painfully dumb, wasn't it? He has no idea what morality is. He has no idea what objectivity is. He's just spouting a bunch of random bullshit that he happens to like because he happens to like it. What an idiot. But let's go look at his conclusion or whatever it is, and I'll meet you back here after he's done. Because holy shit, this guy is dumb. But let's let him finish it up. And away we go.
Time for a challenge. Rapa Nui, the people of Eastern Islands, are believed to have cut down all trees, or almost all trees, on the entire island, leading to an ecological disaster which led to everyone's deaths.
Yeah, So, we're not denying that people can do dumb things in the name of morality or religion or politics or whatever. But if that thing was actually objectively true, then it would have been true regardless of the outcome. Because objective means that it's true for everyone all the time, period, regardless of anyone's feelings or wishes or dreams or anything else. So I'm guessing his challenge is going to prove that he doesn't know what objectivity means, or really much of anything else. But hey, let's go see, right?
That is a quick way to end your civilization. Can you think of a quicker one? Leave your answer in the comments.
Listening to idiots like you. Yeah, that'll do it. I mean, seriously, how many morality videos do we do around here where the content creator has no clue what any of the words mean? Almost all of them? Or they just make arbitrary claims about what is objectively true because it really appeals to them and not because they have any evidence in support. This is another case where I have to wonder where the smart people are in defense of their beliefs, because I really don't think they exist. It's not just a religious problem, although it definitely is a religious problem, but mostly it's just humans being stupid because they're emotionally attached to an idea that they cannot rationally defend. That's not a good thing, is it? But anyway, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, because this happens far more often than I'd like to see. It's really why my channel purports to look for stupidity wherever it hides, because mostly, let's be honest, it's not hiding very well, is it? I mean, I spend most of my time focused on religion, but I could go out and find it pretty much anywhere, because people, by and large, are really, really dumb. And that is not something that any of us should be proud of.